I refused the family trip when I learned my sister invited her new boyfriend, my abusive ex-husband. "We'll just give your ticket to Mark," she said. My parents sided with her, so I canceled every ticket. At 29, I, Amber, embodied what many would label success. My career at a marketing firm flourished. I enjoyed a pleasant city apartment, and financial comfort was a given. What I no longer possessed, and frankly didn't miss, was a husband. Mark and I had divorced just over a year prior, concluding 3 years that felt akin to a personal hell. We first crossed paths at a friend's gathering when I was 25. He was captivating, humorous, and seemed to have his life meticulously organized. 6 months later, we were married, and that was when everything changed. Almost immediately, after our vows, Mark gravitated towards a new circle of acquaintances, a troubling group, perpetually drinking, devoid of ambition. Before long, Mark returned home intoxicated most evenings. When I dared to confront him, his anger wasn't merely annoyance. It was terrifying, escalating to threats I never imagined hearing from someone who professed to love me. For far too long, I tolerated it, crafting excuses, attempting to guide him. Then came that final night, when he stumbled in at 4 a.m., reeking of alcohol. "I got fired," he slurred, collapsing onto our sofa. Something inside me irrevocably broke. "That's it, Mark. I'm filing for divorce. I cannot endure this any longer." What ensued next remains a recurring nightmare. He lunged, his face a mask of distorted rage. I won't delve into the specifics, but I was left with bruises across my body and a sprained wrist. When he finally succumbed to unconsciousness, I fled to my friend Kelly's apartment down the block. From there, I contacted the police and later visited the hospital to document my injuries. The divorce proceeded swiftly. Mark moved out, was mandated to attend anger management courses, and I painstakingly began to reassemble my life. My parents, Robert and Susan, and my younger sister Lily, were steadfastly by my side through it all, or so I believed. Last month, during a family dinner at my parents' residence, they introduced the concept of a family vacation in Florida. Just the 4 of us, my mother, Susan, sparkled with excitement. Me, my 26-year-old sister Lily, and our parents Robert, and Susan. We thought June would be perfect. Can you imagine? 2 weeks of sun, sand, and ocean. My father cleared his throat. "We were hoping you might handle the plane tickets and hotel rooms, Amber. You understand our financial situation isn't ideal right now." It wasn't an unusual request. My parents consistently struggled financially. Dad's small hardware store barely stayed solvent, and Mom's part-time library job yielded little. Lily, a receptionist, perpetually bemoaned her empty pockets. Meanwhile, my role as a marketing director afforded me a comfortable income. "Of course I can do that," I assented without hesitation. I was accustomed to assisting them financially. Just the previous month, I'd covered Dad's car repairs and Lily's dental work. My mother clapped her hands together. "Oh, I can't wait to swim in the ocean. It's been years since we've had a proper vacation." Over the next 3 weeks, I meticulously handled all the arrangements. I secured time off work, booked 4 round-trip plane tickets to Miami, reserved hotel rooms, a double for my parents, and separate singles for Lily and myself. I even purchased a new swimsuit and began researching local restaurants and attractions. The unthinkable revelation. A week before our scheduled departure, I received a text from Mom. "Need to talk. Please come for dinner tonight. Important." Her message immediately sparked worry. Had something transpired? Was someone ill? I texted back that I'd be there after work and spent the remainder of the day distracted, pondering the urgency. When I arrived at my parents' modest suburban home that evening, I was surprised to find not just Mom and Dad awaiting me, but Lily too. She practically vibrated with excitement, a broad smile fixed on her face. "What's going on?" I inquired, glancing between them. Is everything all right? They exchanged furtive glances. Let's discuss it over dinner, Dad suggested, guiding me towards the dining room. Mom had prepared my favorite lasagna, an immediate red flag. In our family, cherished meals often preceded difficult conversations. Once we were all seated, I prompted, "What's this urgent matter we need to discuss?" Dad took a deep breath. "Well, honey, there's been a slight alteration to our Florida trip plans. We're adding one more person," my mother continued, not quite meeting my gaze. Lily, however, could no longer contain herself. "I'm engaged," she blurted out, holding up her left hand to reveal a modest diamond ring. "And my fiancé is coming with us to Florida." "Oh," I responded, genuinely surprised but happy for her. "Congratulations, Lily. I didn't even realize you were seeing someone. Seriously, who's the lucky guy?" The room fell silent. My parents exchanged nervous glances. Lily's smile transitioned into a smug smirk. "You know him pretty well, actually," she drawled, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "It's Mark." My fork clattered onto my plate. "Mark? My ex-husband, Mark?" Lily nodded, her smile unwavering. "We've been dating for 3 months. He's changed. Amber, he's not the person you were married to." The room began to spin. My ex-husband, the man who had assaulted me, the man who still haunted my nightmares, was now engaged to my younger sister, and my family was behaving as if this were perfectly normal, something to celebrate. "You can't be serious," I cried, looking frantically between my parents. "You know what he did to me. Mom, you were in the courtroom during our divorce." "Amber," my mother sighed, "you always exaggerate everything. What happened between you and Mark was merely a typical marriage dispute that got out of hand." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A dispute? "Mom, you saw me in the hospital. You saw the bruises all over my body. How can you say that?" Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair but remained silent. Lily dramatically rolled her eyes. "Mark told me everything," she asserted, leaning forward. "He said you were the abusive one, that you hit him regularly, and he was just defending himself that night. He didn't mean to hurt you." A harsh, bitter laugh escaped me. "Are you joking? I'm 5'4" and weigh 110 pounds. Mark is 6'2" and built like a linebacker at 200 pounds. How exactly would I overpower him?" Lily shrugged. "I believe my fiancé." "Your fiancé?" I repeated the words, tasting like poison. "The man who threatened me? The man who put me in the hospital?" "The past is the past," Dad finally interjected. "Mark's been attending his anger management classes. He's sober now. People change, Amber." I pushed my plate away, my appetite completely gone. I am not going on vacation with him. That's final. My parents exchanged another meaningful look, and my stomach plummeted. "Well," Mom slowly began, "we thought you might feel that way, and we respect your decision, but we're still going." Dad added, "You'll just need to give your ticket to Mark." Lily nodded enthusiastically. "And you'll need to rebook the hotel rooms. Instead of 2 singles, just book a double for Mark and me." For a moment, I was speechless. The betrayal was so profound, so utterly unexpected, it stole my breath. These people, my family, were choosing my abuser over me. They were even asking me to finance his vacation. "Let me be clear," I stated, my voice eerily calm. "You want me to cancel my own vacation, for which I've already arranged time off work, and instead pay for my abusive ex-husband to go in my place?" I rose from the table. My hands trembled, but I was determined not to shatter in front of them. "You know what? I need to leave." I grabbed my purse and jacket, moving towards the door. No one attempted to stop me. No one called out. They simply allowed me to walk away. Autonomy and liberation. The drive home was a blur. I kept anticipating tears, but instead, a cold, hard anger steadily built within me. By the time I reached My apartment, I knew precisely what I was going to do. I poured myself a generous glass of wine and settled at my computer. First, I canceled all 4 plane tickets to Miami. Then, I canceled my hotel reservations. I captured screenshots of each cancellation confirmation and attached them to text messages for both Mom and Lily. Vacation plans canceled, all reservations, were in my name, so they're now void. Have a great June. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Yes, I would lose the deposit money, but it was a small price to pay to know they wouldn't be enjoying a vacation at my expense while excluding me. It took precisely 15 minutes for my phone to ignite with calls. First Mom, then Lily, then Dad. I ignored them all, silencing my phone and savoring my wine. When I finally checked my messages an hour later, what I saw only affirmed the correctness of my decision. From Mom. How could you do this to your family? You're a terrible daughter, selfish and spiteful. We're better off without you in our lives. From Lily. You jealous bastard. You lost the best man in the world, and now you can't stand to see me happy with him. You're dead to me. I snorted at Lily's message. Mark, the best man in the world. She had no comprehension of what awaited her. Oddly enough, I felt a sense of relief as I blocked their numbers. For years, I had been their emotional and financial pillar. I funded emergencies, listened to their grievances, resolved their dilemmas, and for what? For them to turn on me the moment it suited their convenience. A week elapsed. I retained my approved vacation time at work but hadn't decided how to utilize it. Then, while idly scrolling through social media one evening, I saw a post from Lily. There they were. Lily, Mom, Dad, and Mark, standing before my parents' house, luggage at their feet. Lily's caption read, "Off on our real family vacation, just the important people, no dead weight." Several relatives had commented, inquiring about my absence and Mark's presence. I didn't respond to any of the perplexed messages I received from extended family and friends. What could I possibly say? That my family had chosen my abuser over me? That they had trivialized the violence I had endured? It was too mortifying. Instead, I made a definitive choice. I wouldn't languish at home while they enjoyed themselves, even if it was at a cheaper destination. I booked a last-minute deal to Cancun, Mexico, 2 weeks of sun, sand, and solitude. As my departure date neared, I experienced a confluence of emotions, anger at my family's betrayal, sadness for what I'd lost, but also, strangely, a profound sense of freedom. No more family obligations, no more being the perpetually responsible one. For 2 weeks, I would answer to no one but myself. The morning of my flight, I deactivated my social media accounts and set an out-of-office response on my email. I refused to spend my vacation checking for updates or messages. This was my time. As the plane ascended, I leaned back in my seat and closed my eyes. For the first time in months, perhaps years, I felt the tension draining from my body. Whatever drama was unfolding with my family and Mark, it was no longer my concern. Mexico was precisely what I needed. I spent my days lounging on pristine beaches, swimming in crystal-clear waters, and exploring Mayan ruins. At night, I dined alone at beachfront restaurants, savoring fresh seafood and margaritas. For 2 weeks, I didn't check my email or social media. I barely used my phone except to capture photos of sunsets and sea notes. The resort I chose was adults only, guaranteeing an absence of screaming children and an abundance of tranquility. I made casual acquaintances, a couple from Canada, a solo traveler from Australia, but mostly kept to myself. I devoured 4 novels, acquired a golden tan, and for the first time in ages, slept without nightmares. The inevitable reckoning. It wasn't until my flight home that I reactivated my phone. The moment it connected to service, it exploded with notifications. dozens of missed calls from my parents' landline, from unrecognized numbers, and even from a few concerned friends. Text messages flooded my screen, the most recent from my mother, sent just yesterday. "Call me as soon as you get this. Emergency." I almost dismissed it. After all, their definition of an emergency probably involved Lily breaking a nail or needing money for something trivial. But a persistent feeling in my gut compelled me to dial Mom's number once I was settled in my apartment, unpacked and showered. She answered on the first ring. "Amber, is that you?" "Yeah, Mom. What's the emergency?" I kept my voice cool and detached. "Oh, thank God. We've been trying to reach you for days." She sounded genuinely distressed. "It's about the vacation. And Mark. I'm not interested in hearing about your wonderful family time with my abusive ex," I stated, reaching to end the call. "No, wait!" Mom's voice escalated. "It was a disaster, Amber. You were right about him." That stopped me. What happened? The story poured out. They had traveled to a budget beach resort in South Carolina. The first day had proceeded without incident, checking in, enjoying the pool, having dinner. But on the second night, Lily had returned to the room early with a headache while my parents and Mark went to the hotel bar. "He said he was going to the bathroom," Mom explained, "but he was gone for over an hour. My father went to search for him but couldn't locate him. Eventually, Dad returned to the room to check on Lily, only to find her crying hysterically. She had walked in on Mark in bed with one of the hotel staff, a young woman who had checked them in earlier. There was a huge scene," Mom continued. "Mark started screaming at Lily, calling her names. When your father tried to intervene, Mark shoved him. He threatened all of us, saying we'd regret crossing him. Then he simply left, packed his things, and disappeared with that woman." I wasn't surprised, but I was surprised that they seemed surprised. Well, you got what you signed up for. Mark's always been Mark. "That's not all," Mom revealed, her voice dropping. "The next morning, your father and I discovered charges on our credit cards. Thousands of dollars. But how?" "We keep our pins written down in our wallets," Mom admitted sheepishly. "Mark must have seen them. He made large cash withdrawals from both our cards before he left." I couldn't help it. I laughed. It wasn't truly funny, but the irony was overwhelming. "So you're telling me that my abusive ex-husband, whom you all defended and chose over me, not only cheated on Lily but also robbed you?" "We were wrong, Amber," Mom said quietly. "We're going to file charges against him for the theft. But," she hesitated, "we need help. We don't have any money for the trip home, and the credit card companies won't reimburse us until the investigation is complete." And there it was, the true motive for the call. Not to apologize, not to make amends, but to solicit money. Let me get this straight, I said, feeling surprisingly calm. "You disowned me, called me terrible names, chose my abuser over me, and now you want me to bail you out? We're family, Amber," Mom insisted, as if that explained everything. "No," I countered. "You made it very clear we're not family. You told me I was dead to you. I'm not giving you a cent." I ended the call and immediately blocked their numbers. Over the next few days, I received calls from aunts, uncles, and family friends, all relaying tales of my parents' and sisters' struggles, emphasizing their need for my assistance, and reiterating how families should stick together. I blocked each number as the calls came in. Then, they began appearing in person, first at my apartment, where the doorman, following my instructions, refused them entry, then at my office, where security escorted them out. It was exhausting and mortifying, but I held firm. "Miss Mitchell," my office's security guard remarked after removing my father from the premises for the second time, "would you like us to add your family members to the permanent deny list?" I nodded, feeling a strange blend of sadness and resolution. "Yes, please. And thank you for handling this so discreetly." I implemented the same policy at my apartment building, instructing the concierge never to allow my parents or sister inside. It felt extreme, but necessary. They had demonstrated a complete disregard for boundaries, no respect for my feelings or experiences. As weeks passed, I heard through the grapevine what was transpiring with them. Mom and Dad had borrowed money from relatives to settle their credit card debts. They had filed a police report against Mark, but with little hope of recovering their money. Lily was reportedly seeing a therapist, devastated by both Mark's betrayal and my perceived abandonment of the family. I felt nothing. Perhaps that makes me cold, but after everything I'd endured, the abuse from Mark, the gaslighting from my family, the betrayal of my trust, I was devoid of sympathy for them. One evening, while having dinner with my friend Kelly, the same friend who had sheltered me the night I fled from Mark, she posed the question, "Everyone seems to be dancing around it. Do you think you'll ever reconcile with them? They are your family, after all." I considered it, taking a sip of my wine. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "Right now, I can't imagine it. They didn't just make a mistake, Kelly. They saw my bruises. They heard my stories. They knew what Mark did to me. And they still chose him." As I walked home that night, I felt lighter than I had in years. For so long, I'd carried the weight of my family's needs, their expectations, their problems. Now, that burden was gone. I was responsible only for myself, answerable only to myself. A path forward. 3 months have elapsed since that pivotal phone call with my mother. Autumn has arrived, ushering in cooler temperatures and vibrant foliage. My life has settled into a comfortable rhythm: work, exercise, dinners with friends, weekend outings. I've even cautiously re-entered the dating scene. Nothing serious, just coffee or dinner with intriguing men who make me laugh. Last week, I was promoted to Senior Marketing Director, a position accompanied by a substantial salary increase and my own office. I celebrated by purchasing a ridiculously expensive pair of shoes I'd been eyeing for months. Before, that money would likely have gone towards helping my parents replace their ancient water heater or bailing Lily out of credit card debt. I still occasionally hear about my family. My cousin Jamie calls every few weeks, careful not to push for reconciliation, but keeping me updated. Dad experienced a minor health scare, high blood pressure, nothing critical, but it necessitated medication. Mom took on more hours at the library. Lily moved back in with them after breaking her lease. Apparently, she couldn't afford the rent, on her own. Most significantly, the police investigation into Mark's theft had yielded no progress. He vanished completely, likely with his hotel fling, and hadn't used any traceable cards or accounts since. My parents' bank refused to cover the fraudulent withdrawals, citing their having written down their PIN, a clear violation of the bank's security policy. "Your mom asked about you again," Jaime mentioned during our last call. "She wanted to know if you'd changed your number." "I haven't," I replied. "I just don't answer their calls." Jaime hesitated. "Lily's been having a rough time. She's been diagnosed with depression." I felt a brief pang of sympathy, swiftly suppressed by the memory of her smug face as she announced her engagement to Mark. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I meant it. I didn't wish suffering on my sister despite everything. But I'm not ready to be there for her. "I understand," Jaime sighed. "They really messed up." Yes, they did. After that call, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the city lights flicker on as dusk settled. Part of me wondered if I was being too harsh, too unforgiving. Wasn't family supposed to be about second chances? But then I recalled my mother's face as she dismissed my bruises as exaggeration. I remembered my father's silence as he allowed it to happen. I recalled Lily's vicious text messages and social media posts. No, I decided. I wasn't being too harsh. I was finally valuing myself enough to establish boundaries. My therapist, Yes, I started seeing one after all this drama, told me during our last session. You're not cutting them off out of vengeance. You're protecting yourself from people who've shown they can't be trusted with your well-being. Sometimes, I ponder what might have happened if I'd gone on that Florida vacation as planned. Would Mark have still revealed his true colors? Would my family have finally seen him for who he truly was? Or would they have continued to invent excuses for him? Would I have spent 2 weeks pretending everything was fine while dying inside? I'll never know, and honestly, I'm content with that. Canceling those reservations was the wisest decision I could have made, even if my motives weren't entirely pure at the time. Yesterday, I received a letter in the mail. Actual paper mail, handwritten, with a local postmark. It was from my mother. I recognized her neat, teacher-like script on the envelope. I almost discarded it unopened, but curiosity prevailed, and I found myself sitting at my kitchen counter, carefully slicing the envelope open with a knife. "Dear Amber," it began. "I don't know if you'll read this, but I had to try one more time." The letter was lengthy, 4 pages of my mother's handwriting, front and back. She wrote about how wrong they had been, how blind. She detailed the ways Mark had manipulated Lily, gradually isolating her from friends, filling her head with lies about me and about their relationship. She described how, after he left them stranded at that hotel, they discovered a small bag of pills in the room. Drugs. They hadn't known he was taking. "We should have believed you," she wrote. "There's no excuse for what we did. We betrayed you in the worst possible way, and we're living with that knowledge every day." She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She simply asked if someday I might be willing to talk. She included her new cell phone number at the bottom of the last page. I folded the letter and returned it to its envelope, then placed it in my desk drawer, not ready to respond, not ready to decide. This morning I awoke and made coffee, checking my calendar for the day's meetings. I had lunch scheduled with Kelly, a client presentation in the afternoon, and dinner with Alex, a man I'd been casually seeing for a few weeks. As I sipped my coffee on the balcony, watching the sunrise paint the sky in pinks and oranges, I felt content. Not exactly happy. There was still a lingering sadness for what I'd lost, or rather, for what I'd never truly possessed. A family that would choose me, parents who would protect me, a sister who would believe me. But I had constructed a good life for myself. I had friends who supported me, a career I enjoyed, a home that felt safe. I had freed myself from the obligation to constantly rescue people who wouldn't do the same for me. Will I ever call the number my mother left in that letter? I don't know, not today. Probably not tomorrow. Maybe not for months or even years. I'm no longer angry, not white-hot angry anyway. That's progress, I suppose. But I'm not prepared to allow them back into my life. Trust, once shattered so completely, is not easily repaired. And I'm uncertain if I wish to expend the effort to repair it. For now, I'm concentrating on myself, on healing, on cultivating relationships with individuals who value me, who believe me, who respect my boundaries. Perhaps someday I'll be ready to engage in a conversation with my mother, to hear Lily's apology, to look my father in the eye again. But it will be on my terms, when I am ready, and with the clear understanding that I am no longer the family fixer, no longer the bank, no longer the one who sacrifices her own well-being to ensure everyone else's comfort.